Meeting to order. Could you do roll, please, Maggie?
Yes. Andrews.
Here.
Bowden.
Here.
Collins.
Here.
Hinderman. Here. Cole.
Here.
Schrader.
Here.
White. Here. Motion carried.
Proof of giving public meeting notice, Aaron?
Yep, notice were posted at both schools, sent to the village of Dickeyville and Cuba City City Hall, as well as members of the media on Tuesday, July 20th, yesterday.
Public recognition. Is there anyone that wants to speak?
No, we're good.
Alrighty. Item 4 is the consideration of the consent agenda. Are there any items A through F that you'd like pulled for further discussion? Hearing none, would someone move?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second. I'll give it to you, Chuck. Andrews.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman. Yes. Cole.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
White. Yes. Motion carried.
Administrative reports, curriculum report.
Yep, something we're gonna start from our curriculum committee. Our curriculum committee was so impressed by Mrs. Ballback's presentation. They're like, can we get more of that? And so what we thought is we have 11 members of our curriculum team and there's 12 months in the year. So I asked Stacy if her curriculum team leads would be comfortable if we'll have 1 month where we don't have a curriculum report, but the other months we'll have one member of that team come and report on their department. So Stacy is the curriculum director, the head of the curriculum team. So she's going to give you an overview, but in future months, we're going to have people come in and just give a short presentation so you know what's going on with all those different curriculum sections. So Stacy, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be with you tonight. If you ever have any curriculum questions or concerns, please don't be afraid. I'm only an email or a phone call away. Tonight I'm going to share the plan that Aaron was elaborating on that we developed so that everybody can understand what curriculum is all about. So everybody can understand what everybody is doing on early release Fridays. So everything that we do curriculum related is always focused on student learning. Student learning is the focus that drives every single thing that we do around these three things, around curriculum, instruction, and assessment. So those are three words that our PLC teams, our curriculum teams, talk about consistently all the time. The one that you're probably familiar with is instruction, because that's what happens face-to-face with the students in the classroom. So I want to show you and explain how all three of these things come together. And if you have any questions, don't be afraid to stop and ask, because I love what I'm talking about. I'm probably a little bit crazy, too enthusiastic about this, and you might find it annoying, much like my students find me annoying when I talk about chemistry. Okay, so this is a system-wide approach to best practice in education. So that's kind of an overarching theme for everybody in this school district. We want best practice all the time. What does best practice look like? Well, this is exactly what it looks like. And this is a wheel, and this wheel never stops spinning. So it's a cycle. So I don't want you to think that you start with curriculum and instruction and assessment and then you finish. That is not true. It keeps going, much like the wheels on your car or a bicycle. So you can start at any point in this wheel that you want, okay? And every one of our teams is in a different spot, and that's okay, because each PLC team, each curriculum team has its own specific needs and challenges. And if you're ordering new resources, so if you remember my report from June, the 612 ELA team right now is presently ordering resources for this year. So this year, and probably next year, is going to be a big planning instruction year for them. They're going to be knee deep in, oh, how do we do this? What does this look like in my classroom? A lot of collaboration with the people in this school and the people outside the school, both professionals and other people's using the systems that they purchased. A year after that, they're going to shift to assessment. Okay. Other teams, let's say our math team right now is really honing in on assessment. So these are the three things, and notice how the center is student learning. So student learning is the most important thing, and that's why you're here, to optimize student learning. Am I right?
Mhm.
All right. That's good news. Okay, so these are the three things that a school-wide team must do. All school-wide teams must ensure universal access to essential grade-level curriculum. All school-wide teams must identify and teach essential academic and social behaviors. All school-wide teams must provide preventions to proactively support student success. Now, this is a quote from these gentlemen right here, and there's the research study that it came from, so I'm not making this up. This is real, and it's not going away. This is like a fundamental base of our school-wide teams, and this is what we're about. Because remember, we're focused on student learning. I like this guy the best. Okay, I shouldn't have favorites. Okay, so in our teams, and I promised Aaron I would only take 10 minutes, but he's never let me talk in front of you before, so I might take 11.
On the clock.
Okay. I have to push him a little
She's
bit.
very passionate, I'll give her that.
Okay, so 4 essential questions. So these 4 questions drive our student learning, our system-wide approach, and this is what our teams are always doing. So I'm just going to go through the 4 questions. These are our PLC curriculum questions. The first question, if you're in the planning stage, you want to be able to answer this question. What is it we want our students to know and be able to do? So there's process and there's content. You guys are very excited about STEM, am I right? Mm-hmm. That is a process. But then there's a problem-solving aspect that would be a no. So every time you have a student learn something, there might be a process and there might be content connected to that. And as an educator, you have to keep track of that. Okay? And that is your curriculum, that's your standards, your learning objectives, your learning targets, your I can statements, whatever you want to call them. That's what they are. Okay, so on early release Fridays, a team might be doing this. Okay? The next question, how will we know if each student has learned it? Okay, I want them to know how to balance chemical equations. As an educator, what am I going to have them do or answer to show me that they understand it? Okay, so I would have to develop a formative and a summative assessment to show where that student is right now. Are they proficient? Do I need to enrich them? How do I need to differentiate for them? Your teams are talking about this. They're looking at their assessments. They're saying, hey, does this assessment match my learning objective? And then they're looking at the assessments that students have taken. And they're saying, oh, I have 5 students right here that do not understand this. How, as a team, could we develop a solution to this problem? Your PLCs might be doing that. Do you see how different all the different discussions are? Okay. All right, our third question is, how will we respond when some students do not learn it? Okay, now what do we do? And this is what we worked on a lot last year at the middle school and the high school, was differentiated instruction. We had several different trainings on differentiation. So we actually have plans for this. We have tools to do this. And you would use your PLC time to help incorporate those tools, to work as a team, not isolated in the land of one. And then here's this one right here, response to intervention. This is one that we're going to be working on this year. Okay. And the last one is, how will we extend the learning for students who have demonstrated proficiency? That is enrichment and differentiated instruction as well. So those are the 4 questions that your teams are working on Friday. And that's hard work. High levels of thinking go into this. And this is our plan. And this is where it gets, nope, it's not going to work. So patience. I have to play with my technology. All right, so here's our plan. Here's who you're going to see come in specific months, and they're going to talk about what they're doing in their teams, and it's going to be on one of those questions. So next month, you're going to see Mr. Derby. In September, you're going to see Nancy Davies, and she's going to be really excited because she's going to show you all the cool stuff that they're doing in K-5 and social studies, which is brand new standards, and I'm excited about that. It's inquiry-based social studies. So we have Nancy, the CTE department, and so that's the plan. And these are the people that you're going to see throughout the year. Do you have any questions?
It's a lot of work. A lot of planning, a lot of work.
It is a lot of planning, but it's worth it.
It's the benefit.
Because student learning is the benefit.
Yep.
And that's what we're all here for.
Mhm.
Every single one of us is here for student learning because we love our students.
That's right. Thank you.
Any other questions? How am I for time?
You're way under that. I'm proud of you. I'm glad that she brought up, this is really what we're doing on Friday afternoons and what the teachers are doing. Because you guys might get questions like, hey, what are they doing that last hour and a half? And it's important to remember, and I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this line stuck with me, and I went home and I wrote it down, and I printed it off and it's up in my office. Your level of success rarely exceeds your level of continued professional development. And that's so key for teachers. If you just rely on what you learned in college, and I graduated college in 1999, there aren't a lot of things that still hold weight now in education that were important in 1999. It changes all the time. And so I'm really excited for all of you to hear what cool things our teachers are doing, because the professional development that they're providing each other and getting and just working together on all these assessment types of things in curriculum really means that they're going to be more successful and our kids are going to be more successful. So thank you and your entire team. I appreciate it, Stacey.
Thank you, Stacy.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate that because it gives me a better idea of, as you said, what you do on Fridays. Middle school and high school report, Ellie.
All right, so we had many students compete at state track and field at the end of June, which we were really excited about. We had a 4x100 team that consisted of Mason Leeser, Dylan McNally won, Bo Kopp, and Chase Barth. We had shot put and discus. Bo Kopp competed in both of those. Long jump was Mason Leeser, and with the discus we had Jack Miskey. For the girls team, we had a 4x1 team of Allison Doherty, Karina Pitson, Olivia Bernmeyer, and Monica Schmidt. We had shot put for Haley Albert competed in that. For triple jump, we had Allison Doherty. And I want to give a huge shout out and congratulations to Jack Miskey as he was able to get the state title in the discus. So we're super proud of all those athletes. To get to that level and compete at state is just an awesome thing. So congratulations to them and their accomplishments, because it's just really fun to see our students excel at that level. Many of our Cuba City High School FFA members are successfully showing animals at the fair, as it is fair season. So I just want to share that that's what we're knee deep in right now with FFA. The class of 2022 had prom on Sunday, July 18th at PJ's in Keeler. That was sponsored by parents, so I just wanted to share that with you. And it was a really nice event and went well for the kids. A little different having it in the summer, but it was good. So we're happy that took place. As the summer days passed, we were finalizing schedules and for the upcoming school year with bell schedules, lunch and learn, coverage schedules, win schedules. So those are things that we're working on in the office every day, troubleshooting and making sure we're going to be all set for the start of the school year. Meetings are taking place to plan our beginning of the year in-service days. We'll be focusing on professional learning communities and response to intervention structures that we have in place. And working on those. I know Stacy mentioned that, but we're going to continue with those pieces for our in-service days. So this planning, like I said, is taking place with Ms. Balbeck and over the summer, as well as Ms. Wilberding, who is our multi-level system of support coordinator around the response and intervention side. Very excited to share with you, we've been awarded the Fab Lab Grant. This grant was written by the grant writer that you guys all supported last year. And we are planning right now what that looks like for us and getting our spaces figured out. We met today with a gentleman who came in to talk about the different tools that we're looking at and how it could fit in our space. And Mr. Pickle is there to help with all of those things. Mr. Kopp will be getting some training on that. UW Stout offers some pieces, as well as he's going to be going to area schools that have Fab Labs. Maybe a little further than just in the area, but he's going to go visit some schools that have that for their students, and we're going to learn more about that, incorporate that into our different subject areas, and they have that available. We're also working on partnerships, and I'll be able to make sure to share who those partnerships will be as we finalize those. In the area, we have businesses that are going to be helping us and supporting that. So I'm excited about that. It's just going to be a great opportunity for our students and community members, because we will have it open to community at some point where they can come in for a stretch of time once a week and use those tools too. So we're excited about that opportunity for our students as well as the community. We have our activities code meeting on Monday, July 26th. So parents have the option to come face-to-face, or they could watch the meeting virtually live as it's going on. And some of the sports will be having face-to-face meetings after that. For some of the fall sports like football, volleyball are going to have small meetings as well. But that code meeting is coming up, so hopefully everyone can attend that has students that will be entering that. And middle school will be first, and then high school. So middle school at 5:30 and then high school at 6. Staff is working on their 16 hours of professional development this summer in many different ways for whatever they choose, but I just want to share that is taking place. I want to thank the maintenance staff for their hard work, because the school looks amazing. I think I say this every year, but one of my favorite things is walking in and seeing that shiny floor, that hallway all the way down. I love that, and I love the smell. So, so thank you to the entire maintenance staff, because they do such a good job. And then the last thing I want to say is I just want to take this opportunity to thank the board, the staff, and the students, and the community for teaching me so much over the past 4 years. I've enjoyed my time here. Your support has been amazing, and I loved our partnership, so thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. We've enjoyed having you, and as I told you personally, if you applied again, we would hire you again. So thank you for everything you
Who
did.
knows, maybe someday I'll hold you that.
Are there any questions of Ellie? Hearing none, Mr. Olson, did we omit Brad on purpose?
We didn't. I think I just copied. I wrote curriculum.
I had the month off.
So Brad, you can go.
So at the elementary, we had roughly 142 summer school students in the regularly scheduled summer school classes. If you include band, strength and conditioning, agricultural activities, etc., we had over 200 kids actively involved in summer school this year. It was a great summer. I know the extension from 4 to 5 weeks made that 5th week a little bit different and interesting, but I thought it was also still effective for our students, and we were able to get a lot out of it. So we're excited about all the work that was done this summer. I know we have one summer school staff member here, but just a huge thank you to all the staff members. We had some of our interns stuck around and helped cover classes this summer as well. We actually had an intern from Mineral Point who came and worked for us this summer to fill a spot, and I should probably publicly thank my wife for stepping in and helping assist, because some of our physical education classes had such high numbers that we had to bring another staff member in to help cover that as well. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Jesse Dinar, who did a great job promoting summer school courses that were offered throughout social media and making people aware that it's not just remedial reading and math, that we have a lot of fun enrichment activities that kids were excited about and loved participating in. I should make a point of, it was very difficult to walk down the hall, especially during some cooking classes and things like that. Not wander in and try to partake in eating those things, but it was really neat to see all the different activities, STEM related, Lego building, just so many different activities that kids were involved in. We want to thank the Town and Country Kids 4-H Club. They provided ice cream on the last day of summer school for all of those that were in attendance. So that was kind of a welcome surprise. They wanted to provide something to all the students who were enrolled in summer school. On Monday, the 19th, we conducted our first of 2 4K screenings, and we did that at Country Care, our remote 4K facility. And students were engaged in a lot of play-based activities throughout that screening process. And it was really neat to get to interact and talk to the families as they brought their children in. They're very appreciative of having that location available, that their young children don't have to come all the way into Cuba City, that it's right there, and especially for families that need before and after school care that utilize that facility. With that, I'd like to thank Casey Gradle, our county nurse, who came to do hearing screenings for the 4K students, and the Cuba City Lions Club, who did the vision screenings on those 4K students as well. Summer cleaning is now in full force at the elementary school, so I get to marvel at the work that they've done up here, but watch the transformation happen in front of my eyes down there. The custodial staff's been working extremely hard to make the school look amazing and get it ready prior to our start in September. They've already completed the 1st and 2nd grade rooms and have moved down to our 4K area and kindergarten, so they're off to a tremendous start. Again, I want to thank Jessica and Jesse. I'll take a little bit of credit, but not nearly as much as them. We cleaned and organized our vault, our staff workroom, and our office area, resulting in 3 spaces that are going to be much more user-friendly and are much more appealing to the eye. So if you haven't been in the elementary building since the end of the school year, I would encourage you just to stop in, just to say hello and see how open and inviting our office area is. We were able to take down our temporary sick room and eliminate that, which was a little bit of an eyesore, and it just has really opened that area up and made it a lot easier to be excited about being in there. Our Lions Club has started their Stuff the Bus campaign, which always results in the students having their greatest needs met, and we're thankful to be a part of such a supportive community that gives back as much as they do. Our Power School parent portals are now up and available for families to fill out forms and find information about the school year, including where their students, which classrooms their students will be in. Almost all of our class rosters are finalized. We just have to wait for our 2nd 4K screening, along with placing a couple of students. It never fails. We get to July or August, and families want to come to Cuba City and go to school there. So we have to find a spot for those kids, and we're excited to have them. The last thing is we're currently busy finalizing our plans for our August in-service dates as an administrative team and making sure that that is prepared and ready for our staff. Last thing I have is a huge thank you to the lady right next to me. And I know you're a hugger and I am too, so I'm just going to give you a hug. I appreciate everything you've done in my 2 years here. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Brad, for all of the work on summer school and for all those teachers and staff that helped out. Questions of him? Deb, special ed.
So in addition to the regular summer school, several of the CISA 3 directors of special ed have come up with an idea to have a summer program for students within our CISA at the high school level and maybe the upper middle school level to work on functional social leisure skills that they wouldn't typically be provided in a summer school program at the district level. So we had 10 districts of the CISA get together and create a summer program. And the students on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the 2 weeks before the week of the 4th of July, the 2 weeks after, got together and had outings. And there were probably between 20 to 30 students in attendance at each of the outings, plus the chaperones from the districts. And they did things like toured the Rollo Jameson Museum, climbed the Big M in Platteville. They went bowling in Montfort. They rode the Cassville Ferry. They took an educational cruise on the maiden voyage from McGregor, Iowa to Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin. They swam at Mineral Point. They toured the UWP farms in Platteville. They visited the First Capital State Park in Belmont. They took pontoon rides and had a cookout in Blackhawk Lake. And tomorrow is their final picnic day in Argyle. So it was a chance to build relationships and functional social skills with other students in our area, and it was a great experience. Everybody had a wonderful time doing that. Monday, we had a professional development opportunity for middle school, high school, special ed staff, counselings, and administrative staff. And Brian Kenny, who is the Transition Improvement Grant Coordinator for the Southwest region, came and worked on DUES data. And DUES is the dropout early warning system that comes from our state reporting system. So information that we put into our Power School program gets sent to DPI, and in the WISE data, we can go in and take a look at how students are doing. So it creates these indicators and flags students who are at risk of dropping out based on several different factors. So this team is really important because the teachers know the students, the administrative staff kind of knows the overall ins and outs in the programs and how to get into these systems, and counselors are working with students. So we took a look at who were flagged in this program, came up with some strategic interventions, and we'll revisit that again in the fall. And this will be an ongoing process where we'll continually look at students who are flagged in the program based on these indicators and see what we need to do, or if we need to do anything to assist them or support them so they are no longer at risk of dropping out before high school. And he also worked on virtual resumes, which was really interesting. He presented some information, provided some resources, and what students do is create this visual resume and submit a Q code or a resume with the link, and it shows videos and pictures of all of their skills, and it was just very interesting. Videos, skills, interests, and it was all in like 2 or 3 minutes, and it really showed you what this student is like versus telling you on a piece of paper. You could actually experience who they are and what they were capable of doing. So that was very interesting, and I see that's going to be up and coming. Other professional development opportunities we have scheduled. July 27th is next week. We have goal book training, and most of the special ed staff are going to come work with me on this goal book platform, which assists us in targeting specific student needs and provides resources to help us support those students. So not only is it helping us write a better IEP, it's also giving us tools to implement best practices and work on student deficits to get them in the best place they could possibly be academically. August 24th, we have nonviolent crisis intervention training. Jim Nelson provided that 2 years ago. He's coming back to do that training again. And this focuses on prevention and strategies for safely diffusing anxious, hostile, and violent behavior at the earliest possible stage. All of our paraprofessionals and several of our certified staff will be recertified on that day. And it is a requirement that you have people trained, and just the de-escalation piece. You know, they go through all of these holds and things, which fortunately most people don't have to use, but the de-escalation techniques are invaluable for our staff to work through. August 4th, the early childhood team will be conducting a 3-year-old screening. This is a required activity to locate and identify and provide interventions as early as possible to our youngest students with disabilities. Early intervention is the key. We usually do this throughout the school year, but with COVID last year, we weren't able to have students come in. So this screening is offered to all district children who have turned 3 in the 2021 school year or will be turning 3 over this summer. And if anyone has reason to suspect their child might have a disability, we encourage them to set up an appointment and bring them in on the 4th, and our staff will take a look. I also would like to thank Ellie. I have really appreciated working with her, and I agree, you're always welcome back. That's all I have.
Any questions of Deb? I don't see Heather.
Heather got a kid event. She was hoping to get here by the latter part of the meeting, but she does have her report link if anybody does want to see it.
Okay. All right, Aaron, your report, please.
Yep. So Heather and I are working on closing out the year. We had our first visit from the auditors. We'll have our second one usually the first week in August. And after they close out everything from then, we'll give you an update on where we are. Right now, we're kind of working on COVID-19 back to school documents and things. We're going to get into that in our next discussion item as well. We have some enrollment increases at the middle school. Both 7th and 8th grade as of today have over 60 students. When we built the middle school, I believe the max capacity, in talking with Kyle, was 60 for each grade level, so 180. So we might be short of lockers. We found out today because everybody that moves here has a 7th or 8th grader. Every family that
Every
moves in town.
family has a 7th grader.
So
and an
we're going to
8th
be
grader.
looking at putting in some new lockers. If you want to know where, like in the exit going north, but there's Betty's room, kind of that custodial room. We've got lockers on the east side. We're looking at putting a set of lockers on the west side of that wall, and it's wide enough that we can do that. But we also need some tables and we need some chairs because we've got more kids, and it's like 63, 61, and then 6th grade is 38. So normally our numbers are 40 to 45 up until high school when we get the 2 parochial schools that come in, and then they've been around 60. So next year we're over 60 at both 7th and 8th grade, which is another action item. What we're talking about is allowing some interns to assist our 7th and 8th grade teachers with those numbers. So at the high school, Pam told me today that she believes we are over 25 kids from last spring. High schools, they're all dispersed in so many different classrooms. It's not as big of a issue. We've got plenty of lockers, plenty of desks. So that's good. But enrollment seems to be going up quite a bit, so we're happy about that. Let's see, admin team is going to be finalizing candidates for the middle school, high school principal position here. We're assuming that we'll be able to get all of them on Wednesday, August 5th. We'll likely bring in 3 finalists on that night. The interview committee will be made up of board members, administrators, directors, and some teachers. So we'll have that group. And I'd like to congratulate Mrs. Olson on moving on to a different career at CISA World, which we all know that you really enjoyed. One of the downfalls of us being married is I can't evaluate her, and Jamie Nutter can. And Jamie, as you guys know, thought very highly of Mrs. Olson. So Ms. Olson was a Herb Cole finalist for high school principal of the year this year. Made it down to that final number, and although that she was not selected, to many of us that work with her on a regular basis, she fit that bill for sure. So thank you. I'd say see you later, but I see you every day. That's all I have.
So to clarify, you had Senate dates for the 4th and 5th for
Yep.
principals. So
We
it's
think
just-
we can get that all done the night of the 3rd. We can have the interviews. We can go to closed session for selection that night, offer that next day, give them till Monday. So I had dates in there depending on how many candidates we would be bringing in. And looking through all those, I think it's all going to be done on Wednesday, August 5th. So we would not need you. Is it 4th? Okay, Wednesday, August 4th.
3 different dates.
Yeah, you
Sorry.
That's what I was asking, sort of.
All right.
August 4th, starting
Whatever that
at-
Wednesday is.
Wednesday
So-
of that week.
The Wednesday of.
Yeah.
4th at 5.
Wednesday, August 4th, we'll start at 5. And we'll have interviews at 5:30, 6:30, 7:30. They're going to actually be rotating among the 3 groups. We'll be split into 3 groups. So we'll interview that whole time. And then when we're done, we'll go to the board. We'll go to closed session with everybody else who's in there, the teachers and things. They'll share with us the opinion, and then we'll dismiss everybody else and we'll come up with the finalist.
I got one question for that.
Yep.
Usually we have somebody from the communities involved, but we're not doing that this time.
Yeah, we did that with elementary. We invited the PTO. We don't really have a PTO
Right.
here, and you guys, we do have parents on the board, and you guys are, so when we talked about that, we thought we've got several parents on the board, and you guys are, representatives of that. So we weren't sure which group to pick from when you start picking community members.
I know.
Some people are like, well, why did he get picked and not me? And since there's not a PTO here, we just thought since there were so many parents on this group that would be a good parent.
I just wondered.
Yep.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
All right, any other questions? Discussion item, COVID again.
Yes, so we've had a lot of meetings with COVID. Met with the CISA 3 superintendents in July, and they told us that hopefully by yesterday, I'm not going to try to tell you what the date was yesterday, July 20th. That's when they thought that DHS and DPI would come up with a joint package of recommendations. We thought we were going to get it yesterday. Yesterday came and went. I did meet with the Grant County Health Department and the other Grant County administrators. We were all hopeful we would have that yesterday. We did not. However, Jeff has seen the document and did share some things with us. So this was written after the frequently asked questions item, and this was written to send to you guys as a prep for this. This isn't what we'll send to parents, but I'm assuming these are kind of the questions parents would want to know. So are masks going to be required? I can tell you right now, Grant County wants us to mask at the elementary, and they want us to have non-vaccinated people mask at middle school, high school. We there is a survey, CISA 3 survey sent to all schools, and although not all schools, I printed it off, but I don't even know if anybody's gonna be able, can you read that? Yeah. In a printed version. So if you want to pass those down. In a printed version, it's really small. Here's the gist of it. In CISA 3, no schools indicated that they were going to require masking at the elementary, middle school, or high school. None. Here's what we found out yesterday. And this survey was sent out Monday. We found this out yesterday. We only knew that because we meet with Jeff every 2 weeks. If we mask at the elementary, because they don't have a vaccine available, if we mask at the elementary and there's a close contact, we can use 3 feet for close contact. If we don't mask, we have to use 6 feet. So that's what they're doing in the state. Our county spread is about, our community spread in our school district is about 1/10 of a person a day right now is coming down with COVID. That's why so many of these schools are looking towards, let's use our community spread number or our school numbers. And if it starts to spread, we'll at that moment, once we get to this threshold, we're going to say, we're going to mask. But until there's a community spread, we're not going to. And it looks like almost every school is doing that. No one is going to be requiring. So are masks going to be required? Ultimately, that's up to us. We can choose to do that. We can choose. Everybody was pretty set. Grade 6, 12, and even Jeff Kidry, our health director, understood that, although he would want us to have anyone who's not masked or not vaccinated masked. But he understands most 6 through 12 buildings, since they have access to a vaccine, are probably not going to. Everybody who's gotten the vaccine, or everybody who wants to, has had access to it long enough, they're vaccinated. So I don't think anybody's even thinking about masking at grade 6, 12. But at the elementary, because they do not have access to a vaccine yet that is approved, he's recommending and encouraging us to mask our elementary schools. It does not look like any other schools are going to, based on this survey data. What we talked about administratively is we have to weigh. Does that mean more kids are in school through close contacting? We only have to, and we can socially distance 3 feet pretty well. 6 feet, no way without injuries. Right? So we kind of have to weigh those things. But with the community spread being so small in our county, we are one of the 20 counties in Wisconsin that has 50% or more of the people vaccinated. That's good news for us. So this is a discussion topic for us. That's the information I wanted to give to you. I do not think any schools are going to mask at any level. they're gonna make it all optional. And we would do that too. We wouldn't say you don't have to mask. We would say it's optional. If you want to, you can. And we would encourage people, if you come back from a respiratory illness, like if you're sick and you're coughing, maybe why don't you wear a mask while you're, and for the next 2 days you're back at school because you're coughing. That's just good hygiene. And that might be something that continues on. But as far as full masking, we could have that discussion right now. What are your thoughts?
I don't want to mess.
I agree, make it optional. I guess what's right, you found me on that sheet.
Obviously, those kids aren't vaccinated. The discussion and just finding out, the 3 foot, 6 foot situation. I really don't want to go back to splitting our cafeteria into 2 classrooms. And, all of those things personally, and probably selfishly. I do think if we got to a point where we had to go back, if a threshold was reached and we had to go back to putting masks on, the kids adapted incredibly well to it. I think we could function at 3 feet with masks on. I don't want to tell parents that you have to do this or you have to do that. My fear would be if we told everybody that they had to wear masks or that they couldn't wear masks, that may impact decisions about where they want their kid to go to school. So I think we have to take that into account when we make that decision.
Well, obviously, there's many different, parts to that equation, and not only the one you just brought up, but, I think tied to it is the quarantine and the contact tracing, and even at, sports teams, are you gonna, what issues are gonna come up with, a positive on the football or volleyball team, and what does that?
Really no changes in close contacting unless you're vaccinated. So
Right.
that's really the,
But again, I mean, a volleyball player becomes positive, they might be out of action for 2 weeks.
Yep.
But if the rest of the team is vaccinated, they wouldn't have to sit out.
and that's what somebody has asked me, like, well, how many of our high school kids are vaccinated? I don't have those numbers yet. We know that some kids checked out to go get their vaccine and came back later. And we know that some kids the day after the second one called in sick, but I don't know the percentage.
Well, I know the other night, the old folks like me had the conversation about, basically everybody got the polio shot, but it's like, your mother's lined you up and you just got it. Nowadays, it's like, oh my God, you talked about things changing. Well, unfortunately, with COVID, can we even legally ask? Or, if you got a volleyball team of 12 players, do you actually know that 6 are vaccinated and 6 aren't? So
That's a great question.
So the 6 that are can play, but the other 6 can't?
Yes. And so we had Brian Goodman, an attorney from Boardman and Clark, come and say they're kind of working on best practices to do that. He said what he recommends at this point is if a parent brings in the vaccination card or a note from a physician that says that they were vaccinated on this, their last vaccination was this date. 2 weeks after that, then they're exempt from any and all quarantine. So I sent that message out to parents just to let them know, hopefully ahead of time. So if they were thinking about it, they would at least know the information. I did get some parents back upset that we were going to quarantine. I just want to let everybody know, we don't quarantine kids. The county will quarantine kids, and the county told us we will not quarantine anyone who's a close contact that is fully vaccinated as long as they're asymptomatic. And so what we thought is we got to let parents know this right away. So we sent that out. There were some, and I'll meet with those people that wanted to meet, and I'll share with that the same thing. We don't quarantine kids. The county does. And the county told us that's what's going to happen. We're just a messenger in that realm.
Unfortunately, it's more like shoot the messenger or the messenger.
Yes, the first rule in debate they always tell you is never give your opponent a big stick to hit you with. I feel like when I get this information from COVID, they're saying, here's a big stick. Go share this with your parents. Because some people are just tired of it, and I understand that.
Well, it sounded like, most of the people aren't in favor of masking. Is that correct?
Would the wording then just be, it is recommended if unvaccinated, or would it just be masking is optional?
Masking is optional. I think that's the way to do that. Yeah, and I think that's what most people are going to be doing.
Infection rate goes up, then we gotta,
And
we have no
we-
choice.
Yes, and now the next question that comes then is, what is that threshold and who comes up with it? Because Aaron's not a doctor. And I, full disclosure, I'm not a doctor. So I'm going to be working with the C3 superintendents, our attorneys, our insurance companies, and also county health officials probably, and take that recommendation. And right now I'm working with Southwestern Superintendent, Belmont, Benton, and Shellsburg. And we're trying to come up with a lot of the same answers here that we can to make it easier on our part of the state. Because we have a lot of parents, even though, we compete for open enrollment things and we compete athletically, like our schools work close together. I met with those guys every Monday from 10 to 11 to go through COVID things to make sure that we all knew what was going on and we were all doing what's best for our community. So, hopefully we come up with something that this is a threshold that we think once we get to that point, either community or school-wide, that makes sense. What that threshold is, I don't know enough about the data yet, but and we'll work with some people who do.
I would think that it would be probably more school spreaders than.
That's what we talk about, the
than
school spread
community.
or community, which one do we want to go off of? But we want to have something that says, once we get to this point, we're gonna go back to masking and then close contact will be reduced. So here's the difference. The CDC last year prioritized COVID spread over everything. This year with a document that I have not seen yet, we hope to come out, they're prioritizing in-school instruction and mental health of students along with COVID. So I'm hoping that makes some changes, but I haven't seen it.
I'm sure you'll keep us informed.
Next one, and these are questions that all the superintendents were getting from community members or from board members that board members were getting that we shared and we just put it in the document. So why are masks required when the pandemic is over? It's important that we all know the pandemic is not over. DPI believes that DPI and DHS say we will be dealing with COVID related issues for 5 to 10 years. We don't know what that means, at what level, but we're not over yet. No one has officially said the pandemic is over. The next one's really important. Who do we want to listen to? Do we want to listen to the CDC? Do we want to listen to DHS? Do we want to listen to county health? Do we want to listen to the APA, the American Physicians Association? They came out the other day that said every person in a school should be masked regardless of vaccination. So that's what they came out with. CDC and DHS are going to come out with something different hopefully soon. But the reason we think this is important is we learned last year all these groups have different recommendations. And what we also learned is that government doesn't work in the sense that when one person makes a decision, the courts are ruling you don't have that power to. So for all these decisions, you are the governing body. We're not going to get anything from any of these that says you have to do this. We're going to so who do we want to take our recommendations from?
Or do we, since the quarantine, and the contact tracing is being done by the county, would it make sense to follow the county? I mean, I don't necessarily agree with,
And
our
taking
past experience
Yep.
with what they've recommended.
Now, that doesn't mean we have to take all of them, all of his recommendations. That's the most local. That's the most direct. Whenever I shoot Jeff Kendry is our health director. Whenever I send him a message, he gets back to me within an hour. He's very responsive. So that's what a lot of schools on this sheet will say. They're going to be working with their county health directors. That does not mean that, and Jeff knows, he just makes recommendations now. He's not making mandates. So that's the governing body that we want to listen to. That doesn't mean we have to do everything he says, because he's going to want us to mask and different things. He's a little more conservative because his realm is just health, not keeping kids in school and mental health of kids, which we all know is really important. So that's one, we could certainly go with that. Any other thoughts on that? And really, Jeff takes his direction from the DHS. Sometimes there's some wording that, and Jeff and I have gotten into semantics before, because I'll interpret it one way and he'll interpret it a different way. That happens with everything.
Well, DHS being out of Madison, that's been very conservative with masking and all the recommendations, as Dane County's been really, shut down, and if you still want to see people wearing masks, walking and riding a bike, you can go to Madison.
And this is, and I've said this to many of you before, DHS has to come up with recommendations that fit Racine, Milwaukee, Green Bay, and Cuba City. And that's what our CISA 3 superintendents were very much talking about when we met together is, let's look at our community spread, let's look at our school spread, because we're not Racine and Milwaukee and Kenosha. And to be honest, and you guys know people from bigger schools, being in a smaller school during COVID in a smaller community was very advantageous. We were able to do things that really you just couldn't do at a bigger school, and when people are just living on top of each other. So it makes sense that we would look at our data a little more than statewide data in that sense. Right. Any other comments about that? Everybody comfortable with going off of considering county health directives? Considering does not mean that he gets to make those decisions. As I will say, you guys are the decision makers.
Do we need, we're not making that determination now, that's just kind of like something we keep in the back of our minds, we're not saying.
This is a discussion item right now, I'm
Right.
just kind of gathering where you guys are.
Will it be in August?
Yes.
Vote?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. What will test cost? So apparently Brad just told me today that we were the only school in Grant County that accepted the state's offer to do testing on site. So I'm not sure why. Through federal stimulus package or the federal funds, we can have people here testing every day. So I filled out, we'll accept people to come here to test Monday through Friday, 8 to 10 a.m. And they'll try to find a vendor. We don't pay for it at all. My rationale for doing that is, first of all, it's going to save money for our families not having to go to the doctor to get a test. They can do it here for free every day. They don't have to. They don't want to. They don't have to. Or if they were a close contact, and on day 5 they can just come to school and get tested on day 5, and if they're fine, they can come back to school on day 7 or after day 7, and they don't need that 14-day quarantine. So I'm viewing it as a service to the family. They don't have to pay for an individual doctor appointment. My parents, whenever I was sick in elementary school, always used to look at me and say, "Aaron, are you $100 sick?" Because that's what they had to pay for every visit. I don't want our families to have to do that in those situations. So I guess we're the only school in Grant County that will have on-site testing. It's not required. It's just an option. It's available. It was free, and they come to our school. Anybody have any problem? I was surprised that we were the only school.
I think you want to make sure you say optional on-site testing.
It's optional on-site testing. Yeah, it's not-
We're not requiring.
We're not requiring anybody to get tested. But if anyone wants to get tested, they can do it here for free. Our students and staff. Any questions on that?
No.
Okay. How do I get my child tested? I don't know how that's going to work yet. They have not given us any logistics. I just signed up for the time frame and the frequency. And then they try to match us up with a partner who will come and do it on our school site. And we were talking today about where we're going to do it. So where do we have the least exposure to healthy people?
The sick room that he took down.
They set it up outside.
They'd have to walk right by Jesse and Jessica, and they're like, I don't want anybody walking by us. So we're going to look at those logistics when we get that. How will we physically distance? We'll tell our teachers to try to maintain 3 feet of physical distance as often as we can. That's what we do. Again, if we get a school spread, we might increase that need for physical, we might have everybody say, okay, now we're going to try to spread out a little more, but as much as we can. there's only so much you can do in those schools. We're not getting the interns to expand that this year at the elementary school, so it's a little tougher. Next, are we still going to measure, watch close contact and the 15 minutes after 24 hours? Close contact tracing has not changed unless you're vaccinated. If you're vaccinated and asymptomatic, the Grant County Health Department and the Lafayette County Health Department will not quarantine you. So that's what I sent out to parents to get them to know that as soon as we could, so that they knew that information in order to make the decision on whether they're going to vaccinate their child or not. So that's why I sent that message out. They do believe that the elementary, the grade, I think it's ages 4 through 11, that will be probably approved sometime in late September or early October. But that's just a guideline or a guesstimate, really, not a guideline. It's a guess on where that is based on other trials. One question that somebody asked is, who holds a medical degree that's greater than CDC guidance? We're not doctors. And so we're going to be referencing with our Grant County Health Department. We're going to be conferring with them, looking at our local data, working with them. But I know full well, I'm not a doctor, not a medical doctor, I'm not a physician of any kind. We don't have one on the board, but we will be working with our Grant County Health Department, and they take their recommendation from the DHS. So we're going to look at our local data, and maybe I'll just add that as my weekly review, kind of something just for you guys to know where that is. I think I said that before, kind of a link. Anybody can find it on the DHS website. You can type in Cuba City School District. It'll give you all the COVID data that you want. Next, how will students learn virtually? For grades 6-12, we have Edmentum. We had less than a handful of kids sign up for that, which means kids want to be in person for the most part. But we will offer that again for grades 6-12. When are we going to return to normal? That's a great question. If anybody has a realistic answer, you're smarter than I am. 5 to 10 years is what DPI says we'll be dealing with the hangover effect of COVID for the next 5 to 10 years. What routines and procedures from last year will carry over and why? That's really this whole document. That's what this is all about. So that's a specific question, but to answer it, you'd have to cover all those different things. How will co-curriculars be run? We think they'll be better this year. I don't know how many of our co-curricular students are vaccinated. We'll find out when we start to get some positive tests and have to close contact. But I don't know if we have a team that has 6 kids on it and 8 of them are vaccinated, we won't be canceling it. If we have a team of 14 kids and only 4 of them are vaccinated and we need 6 to play, like for volleyball, we would have to cancel. So I guess I just don't know enough information about that at this time. How will my student receive instruction while he or she is isolated or quarantined? Same as last year, exactly. So no differences there. Spectator limits. Are you guys under any impression we're going to want to put any limits on spectators after we all watched the Bucks game last night? 65,000 people all congregating outside.
That was a good COVID close contact experiment.
Yep. Jeff, yesterday we said they're expecting 65,000. He said, yep, that could be a super spreader. He said, but who knows? Maybe a lot of them are vaccinated. Maybe maybe it won't spread anything at all. So I'm hopeful that it's the latter, Jeff. So you did? Yeah. Yep. So I don't think any other CISA 3 schools are going to put limits on spectators, indoors or outdoors.
Fenimore doesn't wear open.
Fenimore is one that didn't fill anything out yet. Okay. Again, if anybody asks, why are you doing it this way when other schools are doing it that other way, know that we're working with the smaller schools in our area. Platteville's a little different. You know, that their population's a little different. They've got more kids. And so we're kind of working together as our small school consortium, trying to keep things the same. And again, that's just a service to the community. So it's not this person versus that person. And we don't want it to have open enrollment implications or confusion. So we're working with Benton and Belmont and Shellsburg and Southwestern to try to come up with something that's somewhat similar. But I do know that each board's different too. So we might come up with everything that's agreed on with superintendents, and then we take it to the boards, and the boards might have some variations here or there, but know that we're trying to do that. What we do with testing data, that's something that we'll look at on a very regular basis. The most common question I think a lot of you get to is, are we going to require vaccinations? COVID vaccine is not a required vaccination. If it develops into a required vaccination, you guys all know that any family can come in and fill out a form that says, based on my religious belief or a health concern, I will not vaccinate my child. They sign off, and that's how vaccinations work. We can't require a vaccine for anybody. Any vaccines that that school-age children get can be signed off on. So no, we will not require it. If it becomes a required one, even though it's required, they can still sign a form to opt out of it. So I think that's important in case anybody asks you. How will districts verify vaccinations? We've got our insurance company working on that. Our attorney said the easiest way right now is we can't require them to do it, but what we are going to be told, and we can't infringe on a close contact investigation. So we can't interfere. If Megan is a high school volleyball player and she is a close contact of someone else, and I call Megan's mom and say, you know what, she was a close contact, she's gonna have to be out for 7 to 10 days, 7 with a test, 10 without. And she says, well, Megan was vaccinated. I said, great, if you bring me in proof of that, we can waive that. Most people are just gonna bring it in. But if someone does say, well, she's vaccinated, you just have to believe me. We can't allow that. We have to have proof from a physician or one of those cards. So we're not, this is important, we are not discriminating against people who did not get vaccinated. What we are doing is our due diligence for the county health department, and we have to, by law, not infringe on their investigation. If we have a card or a sheet of paper that says that they're fully vaccinated on this date and it's 2 weeks past that, Megan's not quarantined at all. So how we verify that, we just need proof. And I think the people who have gotten the vaccination probably won't have a hard time. You know, anybody who's watching at home too, if you take a picture of your vaccination card in case you lose it, take a picture of it, you can bring that. Here's a picture of my vaccination card. It's got my name, it's got the dates, it has the type, which right now they're all Pfizer for our students because Moderna isn't approved for kids under 18. So that's where we are with verifying. Next Monday is the athletic code meeting. That will be where I will have to share that with a lot of parents who won't, probably a lot of those parents will not like that we have to say that, but there is an opt-out of that, and it's the vaccination. Okay, will we use 7, 10, or 14-day quarantines? Why? The CC3 superintendents all pretty much said the same thing. No one wants to use the 14-day quarantine, even though that's what Jeff Kendray would call the gold standard. I think almost everybody's going to use the 7 days with a test, a negative test, or 10 days without, instead of the 14. And a lot of times, remember, a lot of times kids don't even start the quarantine until they're on day 3, because that's about when we find out about it. So 7 and 10 is a lot less than 14. But there was talk about what if we just don't do what if we just don't honor the county quarantines. Every school there said, any school that doesn't honor the county quarantines, we will not participate with or against in any contests. So pretty much every school said that. And when we brought that up to Jeff, anybody that does not follow the quarantines that he's aware of, then he's like, we only had to do it one time where we had to send somebody to a workplace and have them removed because they were positive and symptomatic. But he said that's still a law. Like if the county health director says you are under quarantine and you show up in a public space, they can remove you if they find out about it. So we're going to be going 7 and 10 days. Be prepared to tell the truth that is on the internet. What that means, what the superintendent who wrote that down said, is, Bob's website could have something on COVID best procedures that goes totally against CDC, and somebody could bring it in and say, look, I read this on the internet. That's why it's important that we say we're taking our guidance from this body. We're not gonna listen to bobswebsite.com. Because there's probably a lot of sites out there that do have misinformation. Transportation guidelines, most schools are just going back to normal for transportation, and we kind of did that last year without any problems. We do not have the local authority to tell kids they don't have to wear masks on public transportation. School transportation involves that. That's a federal law right now, so we as a governing body can't overturn that. So everybody, if you're on a school bus or being transported by a school facility or school vehicle, you have to wear a mask, and we don't have the right to overturn that at this point. Field trips. Overnight. Are we comfortable allowing kids, and the first one that we have coming up is we've got a middle school canyon camp that the kids now, can we drive there and drive back each day and not stay overnight? We could do that and still provide a very similar experience. But at the end of the year, I believe we have a kids trip going to Spain, right? In June of 2022. So in June of 22, maybe we'll make a different decision at that point. But where are you guys right now with longer field trips that require a stay over trip? Are you comfortable with that?
You're gonna be sitting in the same vehicle for how long together anyway?
So at this point, we are comfortable with that. We'll probably come back again as we get closer to June and just determine whether we're comfortable having our kids fly to Spain.
Well, that's a real, that one's a bigger if, obviously, because of
We don't
the
know theirs.
vaccination
Yeah.
of, like the Tokyo Olympics. I mean, last night while I was watching the Bucks game, scrolling across the bottom is Japan's considering at the last minute canceling the Olympics. They're still considering.
Mhm.
So, I mean, at this point, why?
Yeah.
I think we would have to I don't know what the date is that we'd have to make a decision, but I think that we'd revisit.
I believe when we approved it, there was kind of a COVID, and if it was canceled because of COVID, they would get 100% reimbursement.
Yes, there's financial deadlines that we'll want to monitor. So if Mrs. Timmerman has all of that, I think at the end of this summer, they could get 100% reimbursement. February, it was still, they would get everything back, but like $100 or $200. It's tiered some way. So those are things to think about around that. With Canyon Camp though, I'd like to add, we're looking to take 8th grade for 2 days and 7th grade for 2 days because obviously the seventh graders last year didn't get to go. So we were able to get the Boy Scout Canyon Camp location reserved for the week and have 2 days for 8th grade, 2 days for 7th grade. So I'm super happy that we're okay with that because we want to have those kids to get to experience that outdoor education experience. So thank you.
Okay, when communicating to the public, this is just something that our board is great at, is when we are talking to the public, it's really important that we utilize the word we, because these decisions that we're making are joint decisions. It's not an administrative decision, it's not a board decision, it's we. And sometimes the board might vote 4-3, but at that point, we are still, when I say we, I'm talking about you guys now, are the board. And moving forward, it's really important that we answer all questions. I think that's just a good public relations item. And then that was kind of the last question. Then I gave this to our COVID team and said, if you guys get any more questions, add them to this document so we can keep going because we want to know what the questions are that parents have. And they just added this the other day. I don't know if we have an answer to this one yet. What do I do when somebody in my household is demonstrating COVID-19 related symptoms? Do all the siblings have to stay home? If we have daily testing, I'm hopeful that if, like in our household, if my freshman daughter is not feeling well and my senior son says, well, I feel fine, I'm hoping that we can take them to the testing site that day as soon as we can and get them to school as soon as we can. So I'm not sure we have not gone to that level yet of that being in the same household.
Will it make a difference if they're vaccinated in the same household?
Yeah. I'm sure,
I mean,
well,
there's
certainly.
different levels of pieces to that.
So not sure, we haven't gotten to that. Hopefully that's in that document that was supposed to come out yesterday, because that's something that I know our administrative assistants are really curious about too, because they field a lot of these calls. So those are the frequently asked questions. Thank you for your input. We will have this kind
I
of
just
the,
had one more
Yep.
question that came to me as we were discussing this. And I don't think we'd utilize it nearly as much as we did last year, but we did allow families to self-quarantine if they were planning to travel as like a precautionary thing. Would we allow that again this year?
I think we try to do as many family-friendly things as possible. What are you guys thinking?
And that, I totally understand that that needs to be more of a discussion,
Yeah.
because I don't know if we've capped the days again.
I think we had talked about doing that for medical excuses only, for not for vacations we have.
And not so that your child can play.
Right.
Be part of an
Yeah.
activity, right? So we had talked about.
I just,
it-
that one
or
was
it could be.
pretty particular to Cuba, so
Right.
that just popped into
Yeah.
my head as we
Thank
were
you for
discussing.
asking.
Write that down and make sure.
Talk about that one.
But I got a question on that. If we're having testing on site, why would they have to quarantine unless they came positive?
I was just thinking of those, if
Right.
you're not vaccinated and
Right,
grandma's not vaccinated, that was the thinking last
Right.
year, was that family friendly aspect. I just didn't know if, because we had capped days, we could only do it so many times.
Right.
If that had been a policy last year, do we
Right.
need to address it this year?
but we
And I
can't
know
ask
that-
that question if you are,
That's true.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, if, let's say they went to grandma's house for Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And if we got testing back at school, why do we have to make them quarantine if they are a negative test when they're tested for school?
Yeah, well, that's a different question. If you're exposed on Thursday, what they'll say is you're
Right.
most likely gonna test positive on
Right.
the following, like
Saturday.
Tuesday or Wednesday.
Right.
So,
But the issue was that people were choosing, oh, I'm not gonna come to school the week before I see grandma, because I don't
Right.
wanna expose grandma.
Right,
So, and I get, your
Where now-
testing aspect is very
Yeah.
different.
right,
where
But that's-
now they could test Friday
Right.
before they go.
True.
right.
True.
I mean, that gives an option to the families where they don't have to keep the kids out of school.
But thank you for letting me go through that.
That's fine.
Thank you for bringing
Yep.
that. I know we did decide that was just for last year, but it's a good thing to talk about.
Any other questions that you guys are receiving that you want me to add to this document as we keep building off it?
Well, I think your question was the one I sort of looked like, I mean, because last year you had said that the COVID symptoms, you know, are indistinguishable from the common cold, flu, and et cetera. So it's like, what kind of guidance we're
Yep.
gonna give parents to keep their kid home, or are they just gonna send them to school
Yep.
like they always would have?
Yeah. And that document that we were supposed to get yesterday, we should have had that, but we didn't get it. When I get that, I will be sure to send that out to you guys, just so you get a chance to look at it too. But thank you, I appreciate that.
Alrighty, moving on to new business, approve the academic standards for all content areas for the 21-22 school year.
We have to do this every July, and if you look at this, every one of our curricular areas has those. We publish those are on our site, and people can look it up and look what our academic standards are. And Stacy, thank you very much for putting that together, and she does that every year for us, but it's something that I recommend that we approve.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, would someone move?
I'll move to approve the academic standards for all the content areas of the 2021-22 school year as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinterman, yes. Cole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White. Yes. Motion carried.
Item B, approve the changes to the elementary student and parent handbook entire document.
Right, I believe you have the summary sheet that was shared with you. So our first is on page 4. We just wanted to make sure we inserted our vision statement. We thought striving for excellence together is something we want in our handbooks. Next thing would be on page 5. We just wanted to add a line explaining that our goal is to begin the 22-23 school year with standards-based grading. So we're gonna spend a year delving into what that looks like and transitioning. So when we look at our grading policies, we just want that to be a heads up that that's coming down the road. On page 5 as well, we're gonna remove the part about unexcused absences do not have to be given credit for coursework. We feel it's best practice that when kids miss school, that we give them an opportunity to learn and be permitted to make up the work that they missed. Especially with all the things we dealt with the pandemic. Page 6, just some additional verbiage that report cards will be available every 9 weeks and sent to you digitally via email and are accessible through your parent portal. So just letting people know that that electronic piece is available as well. The lengthy box there, page 6 and 7, has a lot to do with just outdated language with how PBIS was done prior to me being the principal, and shifting from Starbucks to kind of Cuban awards and different things that we do in the building to promote positive behaviors. Moving to the next one on page 7, just how we document behaviors. We don't do those on paper anymore. All of that stuff is handled through PowerSchool. So it's just the process that those low-level forms will be done digitally, that information will kind of be handled through that process. The next one on page 7 that's being removed, that says parent or guardian will receive a copy of the levels as they're issued to students. Copy of the referral will be sent home to the parent or guardian. Again, that takes place digitally, so we're not going to, it's just outdated material. Page 7 just clarifies and cleans up some current kind of practices. Just talks about a child missing 1 to 3 days of recess or staying after school, depending on the severity of the incident. Not a big proponent of withholding physical activity from kids. It generally leads to increased negative behavior. So we've changed that section to say appropriate consequences will be determined. So it gives us a little bit more leeway into how we best deal with the situation. And that kind of same thing happens when we have a third office visit. Just again, we're not going to take away 3 to 5 days of recess. We're going to determine appropriate consequences. On page 10, this is just cleaning up procedures that we will actually allow phone calls for student absences. In the past, everything had to be a note, had to be turned in. It's a lot less work on our office staff if we can document the fact that we received a phone call and that we don't have to have a paper document, especially with all the electronic access. Page 13 just talked about kids entering the building and allowing kids in during inclement weather. We got rid of the fact that students will remain outside because sometimes weather doesn't allow that. We're going to insert on page 15 just a reminder that lunch fees are waived for the school year. So we didn't want to completely eliminate our lunch fees and then have to put them all back in next year. We left our lunch fees and just put a note that they are waived this year, but there will be a cost for extra milk if kids choose to do that. On page 17, regarding both the headings of assemblies and class trips, both of those will have at the principal's discretion inserted at the end of the last sentence. We're not going to leave it up to just anybody to decide that kids can not be allowed to attend assemblies, regulations, field trips, etc. We want that to be a punishment that is something that has been discussed with an administrator, not just unilaterally decided. Page 18, jackets being worn in class, etc. Those will be removed. We realize temperatures fluctuate in school. Some kids need to have a jacket on to stay warm. We're not real concerned about a kid wearing a jacket on a cold day in the classroom if it allows them to learn better. Page 19, fire and tornado exit plan. Those will say safety drills instead of fire and tornado because we practice multiple safety drills. Page 19, or also on page 19, that just kind of is similar. It just kind of clarifies and cleans up that language. Appendix A talks about food and beverage. We found out through the pandemic, having kids allowed to have a water bottle with them was not the end of the world. And kids being allowed to have a snack and eat that in their own space wasn't the end of the world. And we wanted to have policies that kind of aligned with that and made sure that the focus was on appropriate things. So the second line where it says, with the consent of the principal, teachers may organize a celebration to allow food and drink in the room. We want these to be healthy things. We're not going to encourage kids to bring a bottle of Mountain Dew. But obviously we want kids to have the opportunity to drink water. And then on page 38, it's removed as attendance information is already addressed earlier in the handbook. So this was just repetitive. So those are all the changes. Any questions?
Hearing none, would someone move?
I'll make a motion to approve the changes to CCES Student and Parent Handbook as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Approve changes to the middle school, high school professional guidelines.
Or is it elementary school?
Yep, elementary school.
Page 4 just talks about reporting absences and the fact that we have an absent management system now. So most of that is done electronically. And how personal days must be entered 72 hours in advance, medical, dental appointments, etc. Updated bell schedule. We are not going to have a tiered dismissal at the elementary. We felt like last year we were able to utilize multiple exits and get kids out the doors and do it in a safe and orderly manner. So there's not really a need to send our kindergarten kids out 5 minutes before our 3rd through 5th grade. And our parking lot has its interesting moments, but I think we can get kids safely to vehicles if they all exit at the
It
same
also
time.
causes them bus issues.
Yes.
If those kids were on the bus for 15 minutes.
It's a long time
It's a long time
unsupervised
for our
on the
young
bus.
kids on the bus.
Yeah. So, ideally, we're gonna have them out there at an appropriate time. Just cleaning up excessive absences and tardiness are determined the child's success. It just says students are expected to be in the classroom ready for the more intensive by 8:05. We had that piece written just because we have kids who participate in our breakfast program, and sometimes they get to breakfast at 5 minutes to 8, and we don't want them to not get breakfast and not, be in the classroom. So just allowing for a little bit of flexibility and not having something in our policy that's rigid. Page 5, just all of the information on our budgets is revamped and different based on how Heather has had us do that. So that's just replacing that information. Page 5, purchase orders, that information is removed. That's not how we currently do things, so that is no longer relevant. Also on page 5, we just wanted to clean up kind of the process with use of district credit cards, Visa cards, etc. Heather has shared some guidelines with us. One of the expectations in our building is going to be that request comes 72 hours in advance. We just don't think it's necessary to scramble to find a credit card for a last minute purchase. Those things should be planned in advance. We should be prepared for it. So those things are requested and approved, not I need this because I had to buy it yesterday and I forgot to. Just cleaning up page 9, we're going to add some verbiage under email and voicemail. Just that school email group messages or school mailboxes for personal selling or soliciting is prohibited. Just cleaning up, and that just aligns with state law. You're not allowed to do that at the workplace anyway. Section 10 is removed. We don't have an intercom button that we use anymore. It's all done through our phone system. It's revamped, so just getting caught up to where we're at currently. Page 10, we actually have PBIS and RTI meetings, crisis team meetings, they are scheduled on an as-needed basis. We don't have it just on the last Monday of the month. If we have a kid who we need to meet about when it comes to interventions, if we could have met yesterday, we'd have our meeting yesterday. We want to help kids. We don't want to wait till the last Wednesday of the month to meet to help kids. Copier guidelines, these are just an update because we've redone our copier agreement and we just want that to match what the current procedures will be with regards to our copiers. Page 20 talks about documenting behaviors. Again, we have our online documentation system and we want our staff to be able to use that. And then the last thing just talks about instead of parents receiving a copy, because we're not doing that written referral, the expectation is that staff will contact the parent or guardian when a referral is submitted and that phone contact is preferred. Obviously, we can use email, things like that, but anytime we have that type of issue, it's always best if we can have a conversation about what happened. That's everything.
Are there any questions of Brad on the elementary professional guidelines? Hearing none, let someone move, please.
I'll move to approve the CCES professional guidelines as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poll,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Approve changes to the middle school and parent handbook. Ally?
All right, so I actually shared hard copy this because they're just some organizational things I wanted to fix, and Aaron had already PDF'd it out to you. So just that's why you have it in front of you. Page 3, and also some of these things are going to be similar to what Brad said because we tried to stay aligned. So page 3 in the middle school parent handbook, we changed the same language around needing that written or email piece of information when a child is absent. They will accept the phone call instead. So that's what that first part is. Page 6, we added library procedures. So with the middle school moving over here 3 years ago, they started to use the library. This last year really couldn't use the library. So Mrs. Burkett and I reached out to her about it. And so she developed these pieces for our middle school. Just wanted it in the handbook on what the expectations are in the library. On page 10, we removed this piece about when students bring money in, that it has to be an envelope with the child's name, the amount, and what the money is for. We feel that was carried over from the elementary, but students just bring money in and give it to Julie and say it's for this, it's for law insurance, for this. So she's like, she didn't feel like it was necessary that it's in there anymore. So that's been removed. On page 10, in the past, we had our exploratory classes were 6 weeks long and occurred every single day. And so that would represent a value of 0.16. And we've changed that for upcoming year. They're going to have quarter-long classes instead. So they'll be 9 weeks, which will give them a 0.5 value. So we just changed that in the handbook so parents understand that change. On page 11.
Why was that such a difference? I mean, going from 6 weeks at 0.16 to a quarter, which is 9 weeks, up to 0.5.
The math doesn't work.
Should be
Was it every other day?
It's every other day.
And now it's every day for a quarter.
It was every day I will check the math. It was every day for 6 weeks. Now it's going to be, depending on the class, might be every day for 9 weeks, or it might be every other day for the semester. Depends on the content. So like Spanish, we're going to have it be a semester because
They're not getting any more credit for that class.
No.
So the math is wrong.
The math is wrong. I need to fix it. Thank you for correcting that. Then on page 11, we are adding about the lunches. So lunches are free this year. We want to make sure that was in there, except for if you want an extra milk, it's 30 cents. So we added that in. And then on page 36, we added Chromebook language around the middle school students because there wasn't anything in there from last year when we do assign a Chromebook to every middle school student. It is theirs. They're the only one that uses it. They don't necessarily take it home, but we wanted language in there that they are responsible for it while they're here at school and while they're using it throughout the day. So that's why that was added. And then we just updated the Cuba City website link throughout the entire handbook. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Hearing none, would someone move?
I'll move to approve the CCHS student
Yep.
Move to approve the CCHS Student and Parent Handbook as presented.
I'll second. Andrews,
Actually, it was
That was
middle school.
middle
I'm
school.
sorry, Middle school.
I wasn't wrong. So I would move to approve the CCMS Student and Parent Handbook as presented.
I'll second.
Yes.
Andrews, yes. Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinterman, yes. Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Now the high school student and parent handbook.
All right, high school one on page 7. This is the same as the elementary and the middle school where we changed the language about a parent being able to call in. So that's the language change there. On page 11, that's the lunch and breakfast with no fee, 30 cents for the milk. That's that change. On page 15, same as Brad, we changed fire and tornado exit plan to safety drills because it is a requirement to do a safety drill a month. It doesn't have to be fire or tornado. It could be lockdown or evacuation. So we changed that language. On page 15, we took out the heart rate monitor strap charge because that's been removed. The PE department's going to do it a little differently and not have students purchase the straps. They're not going to necessarily use them every day, and they're going to wash them in between. So they're not charging for those moving forward with their change of what they're planning to do. In Appendix A, we also changed the piece around beverages and food just because how things were different this year. We wanted the handbook to match some of the practices we've been doing. I know, especially at the middle school where I know we're talking high school, but middle school, they brought breakfast up to the kids and it worked really, really well. We had more kids participate in breakfast than we have ever before from the middle school in the 3 years they've been here. So we're gonna continue that practice. I've talked to Janet about that. We're gonna keep that because we want the kids to eat. We want them to start the day right. So we adjusted that a little bit with the high school as well, changed the language to make it more appropriate for what we expect on high school level around food and beverages. Any questions? Okay.
If there's none, would someone move? Dan
Now can
again?
I do that?
You already-
I would move to approve the CCHS Student and Parent Handbook as presented.
Got a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinterman, yes. Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
F, approve changes to middle school, high school professional guidelines.
Okay, so page 4, for the behavior management piece, I've added the sentence of staff will use our behavior management software to report behavior issues. This data collection will assist with behavior interventions. So again, that's going away from, like Brad was saying, it's all electronic, it's in Power School. So that's just making sure that that's written in there that way. On page 5, for the library services, we no longer have the carts because every student has their own Chromebook. So we just made the language fit that to remove the cart, checking out the carts and just put it as resources on the library service side. We removed the requisition piece on page 6 to match more what we're doing now from our directions from Heather with our work on requisitions. And then on page 8, we've added the piece of using school email group messages or school mailboxes for any personal selling or soliciting is prohibited. So again, as Brad shared, he added that to his also. Does anybody have any questions?
Would someone move, please?
I'll move to approve the CCMS CCHS professional guidelines as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinterman, yes. Pohl,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item G, approve the changes to the district handbook.
Looking on page 1, there were some positions that were missing, just old or outdated. So we added some new positions, clarifying language to make sure that represented who was in which category. On page 8, there was no language. We put that in there for lane movements. Right now, we still currently have a matrix that has steps and lanes. So this says beginning September 1, 2021, only graduate courses from an accredited university with a B+ or higher are eligible for lane movement. That is, I'm surprised that wasn't in there already, but when I worked with the CCE on this, they're like, that's gotta be in there somewhere. We couldn't find anything. It just needed to be put in there. I think that was the practice that was used, but it wasn't clarified in there. Page 10, tuition reimbursement for support staff. This is for professional development for graduate courses. Not many of our support staff have a 4-year degree, so having graduate courses, and that just didn't make sense. We were trying to figure out who would utilize that, and it was a big part of the handbook, so we just decided to take that out. Page 17, this is for those people who have a second job, and we do have a lot of teachers who have a second job. This just further clarifies when you're at work, working for the Cuba City School District, you will not be working on your second job specifically. If you in here before regular hours or after regular hours, that's fine. But while you're here working, you're doing our work. Page 18 clarifies it for administration. When we have we go virtual day, it kind of lays out for our support staff what administrative assistants can do. It'll say what custodians will do, what food service people will do, and what paraeducators will do, because being virtual is different for all 4 of those categories. So it lays it out specifically on what they can do and what their options are. Page 20 is all pay periods, and this is just language changes from Heather on how we do payroll. So any questions about any of those? I did go through this with CCEA representatives maybe a couple weeks ago. They kind of helped fine tune some of the language for this.
I will move to approve the district handbook as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews.
Yes.
Bowden.
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Pohl.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carried.
H, approve the replacement lights on the outdoor athletic complex. Ben?
All right. This has been kind of an ongoing problem. Every year, we always have a couple lights go out. Usually costs us anywhere from $2,500 to $3,000 to get them fixed. Boom truck in here, gets on one parts. Some of the lights are so bad that they can't fix them anymore. And Jermaine Electric had told us about 2 years ago when we fixed them last time that the sockets were just so bad they can't be fixed. And it's usually the ones on the west side because that's what takes the beating from the wind. So it's kind of a pipe dream, but got towards the end of June and I had him shoot me an estimate, and the original estimate was $73,490.36. Presented it to Aaron, and we both kind of agreed there was no way at first. Then kind of Heather was letting me know what was left in the budget for building and grounds. I was able to fit a few things into last year's budget that we had budgeted for this year. The doors for Mr. Kopp's shop, the boiler room, and then with purchasing an engine for the van, we no longer need to really replace the van. There's no point. So put that in there, and then working with Heather and Aaron with the ESSER funds, we were able to move the HVAC units that we were putting in for the library and tech ed room into that, and same with like the belts, filters, and all that. So we came up with $72,650 that we could save to put towards that. So I called Jason, and I just kind of want to see if he would donate or anything, and what he will sponsor. If we put a banner up, he will sponsor $3,490.36. So essentially, I got it for $70,000, and it's under the amount that we had, saved, I guess.
During the referendum process, we looked at, if you remember, and we've got some contingency dollars. What would it cost to convert our current poles to LEDs? And we were quoted at $80,000 per pole.
Right.
So we're getting these for $80,000 or $70,000.
Right, and mind you, this is the estimate he gave 2 years ago that Vince had got, and he said he would hold the price. So I wasn't sure if he'd actually drop anything, but I just kind of I started out at like 65. Felt like I was buying a new car, kind of moved a little bit, and I'm like, all right, this is the only number I can go to. And he sent me a text later on, he said, let's get the project going then. So The downside to it is we're hoping to get maybe 1 or 2 games this year, just because of getting the lights in. That's the problem right now. I do have a spec sheet on the lights. I guess I should have had Aaron forward it. That is one bulb one head consisting of 9 individual LED sections inside of them. 32 of them at they're 4,000 K, 1,200 watt. I'm currently working with our Focus on Energy rep to see what we can get back. Hopefully we can get a chunk of change back on that because we are substantially dropping the electric on them. These do come with a 5-year warranty on them. So, and average life, I want to say is 10,000 hours.
10,000 or 20?
I think it's 10,000.
10,000?
Which I think Heather and I kind of figured out to 2,000 football games. If we did an average hour run on it, you know.
Well, then I say we do that when we don't turn them on at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right. I know they're probably not happy with me. I've been turning them on at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning so I can see which sockets are good, which ones are broke. So, yeah.
Is this all the lights or just half of the lights or what?
All of them.
This would be all of them, all 32. So his estimate is, the final one that I got is the LS STU 1,200 watt sports lighter, 32 of them, boom truck for one, labor install, miscellaneous material, and then he's got discount for advertisement. And I just said, we put a banner up, you know, me and Aaron discussed it a little bit prior, you know, going up like the ramp, the handicap ramp there, just put it, even if it's
Most people would see it then.
yeah, most people say just, you know, lighting project sponsored by Germain Electric, so.
But time frame's what, 8 to 10 weeks
Yeah.
for
Possibly,
material?
yeah, longer, so that's the downside to it, but
That's
the thing of it is, we wait for longer, the prices are just gonna go up, and I think he's doing us a favor, and I caught him at a weak moment, giving us the same prices he did 2
Well,
years ago.
4 years ago, we were told that would be
Yeah,
4 times that amount.
Right.
And what did Southwestern do, their lights, poles and everything for 360,000, I think?
Yeah.
For the referendum project, so that's what Mitch had told me. Initial was 500,000, he worked it down to 300 some thousand for them.
See, these poles were put in when they redid the bleachers, so they're
Right.
not that old.
05, I think it was.
No, it was after 05.
Was it?
Yeah. So I mean, he's a pretty good kid. I used to work with him.
Yeah, very responsive, very quick. I asked him if he had them done next week, and he said,
And Rick, whenever we think that all of our lights are fixed, like the boom truck will light, the next time we turn them on, there's 2 more lights up. So
right. And then all of
we're
a
not gonna have to
sudden, we'll
worry
get a
about
gust of
this
wind,
for a
and those two will come back on.
You don't know.
That's how it is.
I get the weekly report from COP when track goes on of how many were burnt out and how many were, you know, so.
Any questions about it?
Any questions? Would
So
somebody?
this won't disrupt the football games that are scheduled? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
no, and I
Maybe a little
basically
dark.
told him I will do the grunt work, do whatever is needed, keep costs down. If we gotta come in here late at night, do it. I mean, obviously, we're gonna have to do some work, he said, around 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah,
for
you
aiming
gotta point 'em.
purposes and stuff like that, but no, it will not disrupt anything of that nature. Even, he said.
We'll
even-
have some bulbs out at our first few home
That's
games.
gonna be the
First try to
trouble
deal with
part
that,
is,
but
you know, because he said, do you want to fix them? But he said there is gonna be a cost. I said, well, no, there's no way I'm gonna
Fix them.
double pay to have
We'll run
them
more
fixed,
of
you
those
know?
things.
Put lights on our helmets.
I just told Cop, I said, take the south end zone first quarter. Because it'll be darker after half down there.
Hidden ball.
Home field advantage.
Yep.
All right, if there's no questions, would somebody move?
I'll move to approve the replacement lights on the outdoor athletic complex as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes, Cole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item 8, personnel, accept the resignation of middle school and high school principal L.A. Olson. With regrets, I will move to approve the resignation of
middle and high school principal Ellie Olson as presented. Unless there's any questions, concerns? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item D is approve the salary and wage increases for the administrative team, Aaron.
Yep, the personnel committee met last Wednesday to go through this and recommended as presented.
Are there any questions or you know what we're approving?
I just got a question on Heather's salary.
That's an individual contract, so we can't
Okay,
talk about
all right.
that.
No later date.
We'd have to go to closed session to talk about an individual contract.
I can say that we, Don and I discussed that at the closed session last week in the personnel committee. And so we are recommending those increases as shown.
Okay.
Are there other questions? If not, would someone move?
I'll move to approve the salary and wage increases for the administrative team as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second. Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
Abstain.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item C is approve the hiring of 7th and 8th grade interns for the 21-22 school year.
As I told you earlier in the meeting, we have over 60 kids in 7th and 8th grade. And we looked at a few different options. Hiring one para didn't seem to solve that problem. So we looked at having a 7th grade intern first semester, another 7th grade intern second semester, and same thing for 8th grade. Contacted you, Platteville. They feel like they have one candidate for first semester. They've got more than two for second semester. They're reaching out to other schools to see if we can find a second one for the first semester. But in order for me to fill out the application, we need to approve that. But fiscally, it makes a lot more sense. We can do, each intern's about $6,000. So to get 4 interns to each semester, about $24,000 to hire one para who's half the number of personnel is almost twice that. So it's closer to $45,000 if they take family health insurance. So it seems like we have twice the people for half the rate if we use interns for that. And then next year for 8th grade, if we have those numbers in 8th grade, we would continue that for next year. So they wouldn't have their own classroom. It would be a different intern in the elementary that they have their own. What we would be looking at is saying, okay, we do a lot of co-teaching where there's a special ed teacher in with a regular ed teacher. But that means another teacher in that grade would be by themselves. We would really kind of look through this middle school team and say, you've got an intern for 7th grade, an intern for 8th grade. Where do you think they best fit? Where do we need to put them? The teachers would say, okay, Chris might say, I want that person with me during this block. And then Cameo says, I want this person with me during that block. They're going to know where that intern needs to be. So there's going to be 2 people in the classroom. So we would have a regular ed teacher with a special ed classroom. Regular ed teacher teaching with a special ed teacher. So some classrooms already have 2, but this intern would allow us to have more classrooms with 2 adults in there. Or if they wanted to split it up and take it into the conference room or out to the main hall with a small group, they can do that.
Questions? Is there a motion to approve that?
I'll move to approve the hiring of 7th and 8th grade interns for the 21-22 school year as presented.
Is there a second?
Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins,
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Poole,
No.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Item D is approve the hiring of Lexi Stevens as an elementary intern.
This is the intern that would be working with Ms. Brewer, who has some students who are signed up for Edmentum. And she would be able to service or work with those kids in Edmentum that we talked about last month.
Are there questions regarding that?
So she's doing Edmentum, not in class.
No, Christina will be doing in class, but for an hour a day or half an hour a day, she'll excuse herself and go work with those admin kids, and the intern will take over.
At this time, we only have 2 students signed up.
Oh.
Yeah,
So we could have
so
another
it's-
intern second semester,
Yes,
On a different
we'll get
motion?
another one. Yep.
or is this the same motion?
Yeah, interns can only work for 1 semester, so we get a different one second semester.
But we'll have a motion, we're not approving both semesters, or are we with this one?
We approved that last month. This is the actual name of the person.
Oh,
This is
got
who
it.
Brad selected
Okay.
for that position.
Other questions?
How many kids are, well, maybe how many kids are going off-site at this?
Right
point?
now, we only have 2.
Two.
Yep.
We can't get them back.
Well, they're ours.
They're ours.
So the, with this virtual option that we have, these are students that are choosing to stay home. They want to be at home. It's better for them for whatever their needs might be at this point. So their parents are electing to do that. I think, Chuck, even if we said we didn't have an option, they would look for a different online option that wouldn't be Cuba City at all. So just because they've experienced it, it's what they want to do for their kids. This allows us to keep them as our students
Mhm.
and keep them connected to us. If they do change their mind, they can come back. They have a connection here in school. We just feel as an admin team, this is the route to go. We often have, I would say every year we have a kid that chooses to go virtual and they'll go to Wisconsin Virtual School and then we lose them. Then they're no
They
longer
open
our
roll
kid.
out and
They
then you
open
have to pay
enroll out.
Yes, we gotta pay it.
So
back.
this allows us to keep them as our students.
Okay.
And the money,
Great question.
and the money that follows.
Yeah, I know, it's
And they are performing well.
the new norm.
virtually.
It's a great question.
Are there any other questions? If not, would someone move?
I'll move to approve the hiring of Lexi Stevens as CCES intern as presented.
Second.
I'll second. Andrews,
Yes.
Bowden,
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Hinderman, yes. Cole,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
motion carried.
Committee reports, budget and finance.
We had a meeting, it was okay.
May 12th.
Yeah, it was good.
Yep, after our audit, we'll have.
Yeah, okay. Building and grounds.
We had that meeting in the rainy night, but everything, it's looking good. Thank Ben and everybody for what they do. Ben's putting an awful lot of effort in, which is paying off in the long run. I know.
Communication review, strategic planning.
Yeah, we're usually doing most of that committee work as a special board meeting at this point.
Curriculum instruction assessment, you met a month ago.
We got a preview of what Stacy presented tonight.
Personnel, we met last Wednesday night and we've covered, I think, pretty much everything tonight in the action agenda.
Yep, just- and
Covered
we're probably
during that
in
meeting.
August, again, to start up that conversation.
Okay. Policy, you're gonna meet again somewhere after school starts. Transportation technology, Dan,
It's been over a month since we met, so I don't know when we'll have our next meeting.
Nothing on the agenda, right?
no need. Foundation, you won't meet till January. CISA 3, unfortunately, I made the motion to hire Ellie for her new job at the meeting last Monday night. So, he, Jamie Nutter, has sold her assets to the CISA 3, and so Jamie's goal for CISA 3 is to have $1 million reserve such that it can act as a true co-op so that members can actually get money back for, in essence, using their services. So he came a long ways from a very large negative in the red deficit to a positive, but he has squeezed every penny from every corner, and his ability to hire people and or fill needs for special needs and find part-time teachers and specialty staff is unbelievable. So I don't have anything else except for a motion for adjournment. Would somebody move?
I'll make a motion with adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Thank
your time.
you, everybody.
Me too.
I'll get a little.